I'm well, how are you?
Whenever you're ready.
Whenever,
I'm ready.
I'll go. Good evening, everyone. Seeing that we are in chambers tonight for our committee meeting, I will ask that everyone stand if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, that's the one, okay, that's good.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. I open the Committee on Personnel. My name is Jeff Dillon, Chair of the Personnel. With me in the Personnel Committee is Councilor Demers and Councilor Amara. We have two items on our agenda tonight. The first one is the reading and approval of minutes from the meeting of January 28, 2026.
Make a motion that we dispense with the reading of the previous meeting's minutes and approve.
And there's a second. A second, all in favor?
Aye.
That passes. Second item we have is the appointment of Amanda Harvey to the Planning Board. Is Mayor Concanon, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee and the council. Thank you. It's my pleasure to present to you tonight for an appointment to the planning board, Amanda Harvey. I think many of you know Amanda, and you know that she is entrenched in the community, very active in all things Woburn. She's got a position up at the Council of Social Concern where every single day she's helping people. She's active in other affairs in the city. She's actually run for office. We had an opening come up when long-standing member Kevin Donovan, after 20 years serving the city and the planning board, decided that it was time for a break. We very much appreciate his years of service. He was a great member. But with that opening presents an opportunity. We sat down with Amanda at length to talk about all that's involved with the planning board. I was joined at the time by the planning director, Mr. Cashel. She answered all of our questions, and even after we laid out everything that's involved, she still wanted to do it, which is a good sign. So we're very enthusiastic that she'll be a great member, a great addition to the planning board. She is here tonight if you have any particular questions you'd like to ask her, but I would respectfully request that you send her appointment out to pass.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Amanda?
Amanda, how are you tonight?
Thank you.
If you could, please, just tell us a little about yourself and why you'd like to be a part of the planning board.
Yeah, well, about myself. So I moved to Woburn 6 years ago, and I've been working at Council of Social Concern for that amount of time, so it really immersed me in the city of Woburn kind of from the beginning. I get to work with the people of Woburn every day, which is very exciting. As many of you know, I ran for office in 2025, and the opportunity to serve the city, being on the planning board, is very exciting to me. I know that there's a lot that I have to learn, but I'm a hard worker and a quick learner, and I'm excited to learn from the committee members and from John, and just take it from there.
Very good. Questions from the committee? Just from the chair, your charitable works throughout the community. You're always out there willing to help. You'll be a great addition to the planning board. Thank you for volunteering.
Thank you very much.
I'll make a motion that we send out the appointment of Amanda Harvey to the Woburn Planning Board up to pass.
second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
That passes.
Congratulations, Amanda.
Congratulations, Amanda.
Congratulations.
Make a motion to adjourn the Personnel Committee.
And there's a second.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
That passes. Thank you.
Call the Committee on Public Safety and License to order. Councilor Ferrello, I'm the chairman of the committee. With me on the committee is Councilor Viola, Councilor Demers, Councilor Papalato, and Councilor Mara.
Motion to dispense with the reading of January 28, 2026 minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We have one matter on the agenda tonight, a petition for renewal of 2026 bowling alley license for Woburn Bowling. The petitioner has not appeared this evening. We'll leave it in committee.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Move on.
I will call the Committee on Liaison to order. I am President Rob Toro. the chair of the committee. We are meeting as a committee as a whole.
Make a motion that we dispense with the reading of the previous meeting's minutes.
Second. You got a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Make a motion that we take the next two matters collectively.
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. So today we have two orders. An order authorizing the superintendent of schools to submit statement of interest to the MSBA, the Massachusetts School Board Authority, for both the Alta Vista Elementary School at 980 and a half Main Street, and also the Linscott Rumford Elementary School at 86 Elm Street. Just before we speak on the matter, just so that everybody is on the same page, this meeting is strictly just a discussion and essentially a vote on allowing the school committee to actually submit the statement of interest. This, under no way, shape, or form, ties us to providing them any financial commitment in any way, right? This is just the next step in the actual order of events, which the school department and the school committee will kind of educate some of us on. So I just wanted to state that we're not necessarily going to be discussing funding or financing here. It's more just a discussion on the next step to allow them to even see if the MSBA will approve the potential of us even having a discussion on the project for funding. So we'll start with that, and we'll let the school committee and their representatives come up and maybe give a presentation first. Good evening.
Good evening. We have a handout? That's okay?
Motion to accept, make part of the permit record.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
So while that is being distributed, can I go?
Yeah, go.
right.
Actually,
Hold
we'll give Gordon a
Hold on
quick
for
second.
Gordon.
Just trying to be efficient.
You go ahead. We got you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Gordon.
Okay. So first of all, thank you for having us tonight. As President Toro alluded to, this is really an opportunity to give me more work, really to write the statement of intent, and we'll walk through that process with you. I've never done this, so I relied on people that have gone through this to some extent to help us learn as we go. And so with that being said, I do want to say that this has been a years in the making event. And I say that because on February 29th of 2020, and I didn't misspeak, it was a leap year, a group of us, including now Mayor Mike Concanon, toured on a school bus on a Saturday the schools in Woburn to look at the conditions of all of our buildings, understanding that deferred maintenance was an issue that we needed to address. And so with that being said, we did conduct a feasibility study done by Danisco Design, which you're all familiar with. And then in 2023 and 2024, we convened what we called the Woburn Building and Capital Planning Committee. And so Mr. DeMambro was part of that group. And so we also, in April of 24, did the similar tour to look at that point, just more specifically, at the two middle schools and the North Woburn elementary schools. And so with that being said, here we are tonight, again, more specifically about the school building project next steps and the North Woburn Elementary School. And so with that, I'll introduce Ms. Donna Danisco, who will walk through this process with you. Again, the work, I will be doing the work, but having someone that's guided the process in the past, I thought might be helpful for the council to hear from her directly. So with that, Ms. Danisco.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. This will be pretty quick. I think it's more quick information overview, and then if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them the best I can. So it's the school committee has voted to submit statement of interest for the new North Woburn Elementary School. So what that means is, as Dr. Crowley indicated, he has lots of work to do. He needs to submit 2 statement of interests, one for the Alta Vista School and one for the Linscott School. And what you want to do is indicate that there's a consolidation for consideration. If you do that, then MSBA would look at both schools simultaneously and consider merging them and eliminating 2 of your most needy schools. It's a recommendation to include the early childhood program. Again, this is just so that you can further study it to determine where the best location would be within the school district. MSBA will come back to you and say, okay, thanks for 2, but pick 1. I know it sounds silly. So then you would pick the one statement of interest that you feel is most appropriate, which would probably be the Alta Vista, because that has the largest site where you could actually put both consolidation. So going through the process, first, the statement of interest has absolutely no risk. In fact, this is just an opportunity for the Woburn Public Schools to provide MSBA all of the deficiencies within the 2 schools. MSBA will look at your statement of interests as well as everyone else that submits a statement of interest for the year, and then we'll review that in conjunction with all of the SOIs that have been submitted for the entire year. MSBA will then prioritize those that feel are the most needy. They'll conduct a senior study visit. They'll come out, they'll look at both of your schools, and then, and that's still not a guarantee, then they'll recommend which statements of interest, which schools are aligned with their annual project funding cap. So MSBA has a limit in which they can spend every year. So if no high schools submit, they can, right, they'll be able to fund more elementary schools. I think in the past couple of years, they've allowed in several large high schools, which limited the number of other schools that they could allow in. So when would a statement of interest not be accepted, right? There's no guarantee that you will be accepted. I don't recall how many statement of interests it took for you to get into the eligibility or into the pipeline with the Earl Wyman School. I think that you demonstrated quite a need, but there's no guarantee, right? So some of the factors that go into you not being selected is, one is that your district has a higher participation than other districts that have been submitting and haven't been received in, that the MSBA doesn't see that there's an overcrowding and an existing or pending deficiency at your SOI school, that, as I was just saying, MSBA will say, yes, you have needs, but it doesn't rise to the top of the SOIs that were submitted. There's more needy and urgent schools that need their funding. So just to be clear, and thank you, Council President, the SOI is not a financial commitment at all, right? If the SOI is selected, you would enter into an eligibility period. And what occurs during that phase is you form a school building committee, you complete a questionnaire outlining your programs, all of your grade configurations, you provide a summary of the district's existing maintenance practices, which will determine some additional reimbursement points that you would receive from MSBA. And probably more importantly is the MSBA will work with you to design and decide on an enrollment for the school, right? So adding the ECP in now they'll take that into consideration when they evaluate all of your elementary schools in the district to see where the capacities are within the district, and then determine what the appropriate enrollment would be for this school. So if they think, as an example, you have excess capacity at one of your elementary schools, they'll say, okay, well, you're saying you need 400 students or 425 students, but you have 25 extra seats over in this school. So we're going to tell you we'll agree to an enrollment of 400. So they have an incredibly prescriptive process that is very detailed, and they've been very successful at arriving what enrollments are for districts. The other component to the eligibility period is at that point in time that you would need to financially obtain funding for just the very first part of the project, which would be approximately $2 million. And finally, your base reimbursement rate would be established at this phase. So the timeline for this SOI period is all statement of interests need to be submitted to the MSBA by April 17th of 2026. The MSBA takes spring, summer to review them all, depending on how many they have. It could go quicker or it could take a little longer. They will do senior site visits between August and October, meaning they'll come out, they'll prioritize the most needy, then they're going to want to come out and look at the most needy, and then from there, they'll whittle it down to the few that get accepted, and they'll be making recommendations to the MSBA Board of Directors, who will then invite those districts in, hopefully by December of 26, but we've seen it go as long as the following February of 27. So the overall schedule, I know funding is really important, but there's several steps that have to occur before then, and it really needs to be a comprehensive and inclusive process. So big if, you are selected this year, you would be approved, say, at the end of this year, 26, beginning of 27. You have 270 days to complete the eligibility period, which is to be aligned with MSBA on enrollment, what you're planning on studying, forming the school building committee, and obtaining the initial funding for the project, which is somewhere around $2 million. And MSBA will work with you to make sure that you are funding this portion of the process appropriately. From there, you then form your team. You go and hire an owner's project manager, an OPM, and a designer. And that takes about 6 months. Once your team is formed, you then start the feasibility study. And the feasibility study is approximately 9 months. We'll look at all of the different configurations, all the different options. Is an ECP included? Is it not included based on MSBA's enrollment? What does an ad reno look like? What does a new construction look like? Can it fit on either site? So this is just a full evaluation of all of your options that are required to be studied. Once that's complete and a preferred solution is determined and approved locally, then you enter the schematic design period. And what that is you take your preferred solution and you spend a lot of time detailing the program, making sure that everything is documented, everyone understands the educational program, and that an overall square building footprint, design, conceptual design, and price would be determined at that point in time. It goes before MSBA for their vote and their approval, and then it'll come back to the city, and you have 120 days at that point in time to obtain funding for the entire project. So based on this timeline, funding the project probably would not occur until the fall of 2029 or spring of 2030 for full funding for the project. Once that funding's approved, you then get into detailed design, and then you go out to bid and you construct it. And then so according to the schedule, a new school could be online, fall of 2032 to fall of 2033. So it's a long process, it's detailed. MSBA makes sure that you achieve all of the appropriate steps, get all of the input from all of the constituents, and that you have full buy-in from the community. But, so, as you can see, the statement of interest is just the first step of many for the process. I've attached, well, you can't see them because it's on paper, but we have the presentation. There are links that we have in the presentation. If you're interested at all, it will take you through the SOI process, statement of interest process, your eligibility period, how they arrive at the enrollment, which may be really important and helpful to you all to understand that, and then even just to give you an idea of construction cost data and what we're seeing in the market today, just as helpful information. That's it.
Thank you. Superintendent Crowley, does anybody else, before I open it up to members of the council for questions, is there anyone else from your team that'd like to add anything? Yeah. How are you?
Good evening, Principal Toro and counselors. So I just wanted to sort of wrap up the presentation. I know we've spoken a little bit, and I think Ms. Danisco did a great job of explaining the whole process and how very, very early we are in it, but we are happy to take any questions.
Awesome, thank you. Council Ferrullo.
If I could, and I think I know the answer. The school building committee, they don't allow you to forward look to anticipate future growth. They take a snapshot in time, and you're forced to deal with their anticipated enrollment at that time, despite what happens between 26 and 27 and 32. Is that?
They actually work with you, so they will look at building permits, they'll look at other projects that may be coming up, especially housing, and understand. They'll look at migration, incoming and also outgoing. I think you have an incoming issue. But they'll work with you to establish what the enrollment should be, and they try to project out 10 years.
So that's good.
It's very good. It's very good. And with all of my experience with the MSBA, we haven't seen them fall short too many times on that enrollment. They're really thorough.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Council Papalato.
Thank you, President. Thank you for putting this together. It's very helpful. I've not been through this process before, so it looks like this is your first time through.
My first time. Yep. A little nervous.
Just a question around how it, once we submit to the MSBA, is it once we meet a certain number of criteria where we get approved at that point, or is it dependent on how many others people are doing the same thing, what other cities and towns, and is there some limit to what they'll do at a given approval process?
Yeah, so I'll start, yes, you have that correct. MSBA, again, has a funding cap, so they can only invite so many projects in to the pipeline every single year. They have a limit on how much they can spend and bond for. So with that, they kind of work backwards, right? So I'm making it up. Say they can only invite 15 projects in, right? So from there, they say, okay, what are the most needy? So they'll start at the top, they'll review many. A lot of times they'll receive 10 statement of interest, say from the city of Boston or Springfield or whatever. And that's why they really ask a lot of districts to select one. So from there, they whittle it down to who has enrollment is a big factor, but also building deficiencies are big factors. And from there, they whittle it down to who are the most needy. And then, let's say there are 20, but they only have a limit for 15, so the top 15 would get in.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, that was
Yeah.
perfect.
Council Demers.
Thank you. First and foremost, if we could possibly, if the school department could send us a copy of the presentation via email, that'd be great. Because I know I received a lot of questions from constituents that those questions were answered in the presentation. So I looked it up and it looks like the last statement of interest was 2011. So we've gone 15 years between filing statement of interest for a new school. So I think that's important to note because this whole process started in 2000. when the Reeves Elementary School was built, and then we've had this pretty good rollout the first decade of the 2000s, and then after that, it kind of slowed. So I'm excited to see this because, you know, it may be the North Woburn School, and my colleague, Councilor DeMambro, represents North Woburn, but my ward covers students that would go to this school as well. So I'm 100% in favor of it. So what I would say is, if I may, through the president, to Councilor Viola for finance, I think it would be a good idea to get a little deeper dive into what our debt service is currently right now, so that we can show constituents that by the time this does have to start being funded, we may have room from where another school will be dropping off the debt service. So the tax implications won't be as drastic as a lot of people out there over the weekend were talking about. I saw a lot of posts on Facebook of the concerns of the tax implications and the fiscal impact that the residents would have. So I just think if we could have that added to the agenda in a future finance meeting, it would be helpful for the council, but also the general public to understand the debt service and what may be coming off for our, mortgages for the other schools, so that the tax implication won't be as big as was being bandied about online and through residential channels over the weekend. I thank you for the presentation, and I look forward to following along and supporting the process.
And if I could
Councilor
just
Viola?
point out,
1 second. Go
for
ahead.
Councilor Demers, I want to point out that you were also on the Building
I was,
and
yes.
Capital Planning Committee.
Thank you for mentioning that. I appreciate
Dr. Crowley
that.
forgot you just because you're always there.
Councilor Viola.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna, for the presentation tonight. So let me get this straight. It's about 270 days from when MSBA approves the SOI to when you actually have to decide if you want to take it. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. I didn't mention that. Yes, during the eligibility period, you can choose to move forward or not move forward.
Okay.
And as part of the eligibility period, you also need to obtain the initial funding to complete the feasibility and schematic design phase. So there have been communities that have said we're not in agreement, and they have chosen to move on and do something without the MSBA. So, yes.
All right. And through the chair to Councilor Demers, thank you. I will speak to the city auditor about that tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Dillon.
Thank you, President Toro. First off, I'd like to applaud Councilor DeMambro for advocating for a new North Woburn school. I don't think we'd even be at this point tonight here where we are if it wasn't for him working so hard at this. So thank you for that. Certainly the other parts of the city have, over the years, received newer schools, and it's, time to look at North Woburn and see if we can afford to do so. With that said, just a couple questions. I understand there's some talk about including the ECP component to the new elementary school as well. In your professional opinion, you think that helps or hurts by doing that with the MSBA?
I think it's an important component of the capacity at all your elementary schools. So you don't want MSBA to just be taking into consideration the elementary school capacity, because a significant amount of that is for the ECP. So I think it's prudent to have that be part of the conversation and discussion with MSBA. MSBA may say, you have a little bit of capacity at one of your other schools, so you could put the ECP someplace else, and we can do just the new North Woburn schools. So we are seeing more and more schools or districts, including the early childhood program, at its full capacity, like you all are, not just a small cohort of the ECP, but the full ECP that has been fully funded by the MSBA. So it would be something that you would want to continue conversations with the MSBA. They will help you determine where your capacity is. Do you need capacity for the ECP, whatever. So they will be your partner in determining all of that. So it won't hurt you.
Okay.
It will just, recognizing it now will help make sure that they factor that into your elementary school capacity.
Thank you. And just to follow up a little bit on that, that's one of the things I'd like to see the school committee look at, perhaps maybe shaving a chunk off of this new school in North Woburn and looking to put the ECP at something that we already own that may work with some tweaking. So thank you. Kind of went where I wanted you to go.
Yep.
My next question for you is typically, how many statements of interest during a year, during that application period, does the MSBA get?
I should have done my homework.
No,
Sorry
that's
about
okay.
that. In past years, I think there'll be somewhere between 80 to 100
Okay.
SOIs. And again, depending on the size of the potential projects, will that determine how many districts are invited in?
Correct.
There have been a couple of years where there have been some very large high schools that take up a lot of their funding capacity. The Brockton High School is slated for, I don't know, $700 or $800 million.
Okay.
Lexington High School, as you may know, is extremely expensive. So it really depends on the number of statement of interest and the types of statement of interest. But I would say 10 to 20 maybe statement
10
of
to 20, and
interest,
probably-
maybe average about 15 a year.
Probably less than half get it
Oh,
accepted?
no, so if there's about 80 SOIs submitted, about 15 to 20 would get
15
accepted.
to 20.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
So it is, if you are accepted, right, take that as a sign as that you have a partner who understands your need and wants to work with you to find the appropriate solution for you. And that just demonstrates that you do have a significant need.
Thank you. And my last question is, typically, if you do get accepted and you're rolling along, do they pay half?
So as part of the eligibility period, they will pay, they'll establish what your reimbursement rate is. And normally that is based on your poverty levels and things like that, to determine your reimbursement rate. I think, was it around 54% or something?
Yeah, so for the Harold Wyman, I believe our rate was 51%, and I'm told that it's plus or minus 5% as a rule of thumb.
Gotcha. Very good.
So what MSBA will do for the first portion of the feasibility schematic design, they'll pay your full reimbursement rate, let's just call it 51% of the amount that you've spent. Going forward, they have limitations and caps on some of their eligible items, but they'll get into that more. But your effective rate for the entire project, you can anticipate will be a little bit less than that.
Very good. Thank you for the
Sure.
presentation and the answers. Appreciate it.
If
Thank
I-
you, President.
If I could just add, Mr. President?
Yes.
Thank you. One of the benefits of the ECP in its own facility would then alleviate a lot of the crowding issues at the Reeves and the Shamrock, because of how many classrooms are being used there for now. So that is a benefit of adding it onto the North Woburn School, and that wouldn't affect the SOI because the SOI doesn't refer to, all the SOI is showing them is that we have deficiencies at the two schools, so that whether or not an ECP is discussed won't affect if our SOI is approved at this stage,
Gotcha.
if that helps.
My point is just to maybe whittle down that number if
Sure.
we already have something in place that we can tweak the system with and look at whatever it takes to move the students to maybe its own school as an ECP, as like the Malcolm White, as an example.
So you're suggesting taking the Malcolm White offline and making it itself an ECP?
Something to look at.
Something to look at. I think we did, I don't have it in front of me, but to that point, there are a few things that we did look at when we were starting to talk about redistricting and whether different buildings would work as an ECP, and because, of course, they weren't built for that. A lot of them don't work. And for instance, the Malcolm White, I don't know how many parking spots they have, but the ECP requires about 60 parking spots. I don't think they have that on the Malcolm Whites, but one of the many,
Sure.
you know, the minutia of the whole process. But that is, I will make a note of that.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, President.
Sure. Councilor DeMambro.
Donna, great presentation. I thank you. And I know you've been working hard on this. I think we've been dealing with this now for about 3 or 4 years now. My question is, when you reference the MSBA and they start, you know, sorting through all of the data on the schools and the buildings and their conditions, at what point does the MSBA realize that the building is in rough shape or in disrepair? Also taking into account, like Councilor Frullo had said, you know, space is obviously an issue, especially with the housing initiatives that have been coming down from the state level, the State House, to all, you know, the cities and towns. I mean, when they start pulling all of this data together with, as well as forecasting out 6 years down the road, I'm just trying to wrap my head around, you know, the last SOI, you know, according to my colleague, was 2011, you know, for the North Woburn schools. You know, that's 15 years ago. And we're looking at a build-out of possibly, if this goes smoothly, another 6 years. I mean, that's 21 years in the making, and we still have to, you know, some way, somehow maintain these buildings as well as accommodate, you know, our growing city's population. So, I mean, there's a lot of critical factors here that actually make me a little nervous, you know, when I start looking down the road. Not so much looking at this particular time frame that we're all in right now, but down the road in the next 2 to 3 years, let alone 6 years. So where do they come up with their matrix on you know, building quality and as well as overcrowding?
So they did do a survey recently. They went to all of the schools across the entire Commonwealth. I think there's some misinformation in some of that, which I believe Dr. Crowley is going to follow up with them on, but that's a baseline. But this statement of interest goes into so much detail. I'm sure Dr. Kraut-Lenny's here with his head down right now because he doesn't even want to know. But the level of detail that goes into these statement of interests, they want to know everything. They want to know that your pipe burst today, right? They want to know the pipe burst 3 weeks ago. So all of this information is put into the statement of interest. And then when you talk about overcrowding, you will say that you have all of this housing developments coming in down the pike, whatever, and they will take that into consideration as well.
Because I have your reports. I mean, I have the report from your Alta Vista and your Linscott. It's pretty extensive.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of line items here.
There's
And when you
quite a bit of deficiencies.
there's, you know, if you break it all down and you go out, you know, the 6 years down the road, there's almost 60 to 70 million dollars worth of repairs, keeping the buildings as is. And that's through your evaluation that you did, I believe, in 2023.
Correct.
So that was 3 years ago. And we've had, I'm sure, instances of breakdowns and failures with the mechanicals in those buildings since then. And I anticipate, you know, sorry, Lenny, I anticipate probably more because of the age, you know, of the systems that are in place. And I'm sure they have reached their life expectancy probably 10 years ago,
I was going to
if
say,
not
I
longer.
think they've exceeded.
You know, I remember those old boilers when I went to the Alta Vista, and I'm sure they're still in place. So, you know, it's concerning all the way around, and that's why, you know, I appreciate everybody's efforts. I appreciate all my colleagues' support on this, Mayor Concanon, everyone. It is something that needs to be seriously looked at, and, you know, I'm a fierce advocate for these schools to be rebuilt up in North Woburn. I think it's beyond time. I thank you.
Councilor Mercer Bruin?
Thank you.
I'm very proud to say I've been involved with the building of at least 4 of our schools in my, can I say, short amount of time here, about 20 years or so. Very proud of that. And I'm so proud to see that the long-term plan that was put together well over 15 years ago, and that did include the Alta Vista at the time, that we're finally here to do the Alta Vista. Thank you for being so patient in North Woburn. I am excited beyond, because it sees our whole plan come to almost fruition. And here's the good news, everybody. We've done this. This is not a new rodeo for us, and the MSBA knows how good we are at it. So I'd hate to say, oh, I'm 100%, but if I were a gambling person, we got a pretty good shot at this. We've got the experts putting it together. We've got support from the mayor's office. We've got support from our community, and we know how to do this paperwork, which is half the battle. So if there's anything that I can do along the way to help, please don't hesitate to call. I did want to ask a quick question. You mentioned that the R word, redistricting. I know we haven't really done that. When will that happen? And I would think, and I know the community, many members of this community think it should have happened a couple of years ago. So is that part of the overall plan? I know we're submitting what we're submitting today.
I mean, when you say a couple of years, I'm thinking decades, but I agree.
A couple of years since we've had the conversation.
There.
We never did anything. We haven't done anything, I think, in 40 years. And I don't think that's an exaggeration.
It was 1989. I just moved to Woburn. So yes, not in my lifetime in Woburn has it been done. It's hard, we made space as we could with the redistricting to make sure that kids weren't learning in stairwells and hallways. But it's really hard to do a really impactful and meaningful redistrict without more space, because we don't have, there's not really
There's only so many closets in the house, right? And you can shift them around, but
no more
it is what
in
it
North
is.
Woburn, I can tell you that.
Okay.
We're all out of
So does that mean, right, as we move forward with this, we will see a hard look at the city as a whole in the form of a redistricting program?
So with more space at the Alta Vista,
Yes.
Linscott, you of course would have more students
Mhm.
pushing up that way. If there's an ECP, you're taking students out of the Reeves, you're adjusting kids back into the Reeves that are closer to the Reeves. And so, yeah, that is going to adjust and balance out.
And I know that's not a word, people generally like to hear, but it was astonishing to me how many calls I got, and I'm on the city council. It was unusual for me to get calls from people about schools, unless there was something wrong, right? And then you get some calls. But at the end of the day, it was very unusual for me to get those calls. Usually, parents would be so opposed to it, and that was not the case. So, and again, things could have changed. I just want to make sure that we look at it hard.
Because our district, our ward was definitely impacted by the increase in numbers.
And in Ward 5, we did a small redistricting of a few of the kids at the Goodyear, and nothing else in the entire city was touched. So I'm glad you brought that up. So yes, I would like to see us take a look at the bigger picture, and I know you guys will do that. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for the presentation. Very excited. It's great news for the city.
I think maybe we can have Dr. Crowley speak a little bit. I think he's itching to speak about maybe
I'm not
the
itching, but
redistrict.
I'm happy to. I just want to speak just quickly to your question relative to redistricting. The school department and the school committee voted to redistrict last year, and we did redistrict for this year. What was voted, though, was a phased redistrict, so it wasn't that everybody...
Started with Ward 5. Is that what...
Various wards were touched, right? So we had overcrowding at different schools. I don't... specifically, we didn't go by ward, per se. We just went by schools. So we did redistrict students from the Harold Wyman in the Goodyear to alleviate some of the space concerns this year. We created what we now referring to as a buffer zone up in North Woburn, so that some students were assigned based on class size, whether in previous years they would have been assigned directly to the Alta Vista. The buffer zone allowed for flexibility so that students were assigned to the Linscott, and so We have gone through an extensive redistricting process over the past few years. Again, because we don't have new space to put things or students into, the maps that we have, and happy to share those with the committee as well electronically, if it would be helpful, reflect a phased approach to redistricting, with the idea that once a new building is built, that would be, we call it our end map. And so it's a multi-year approach to redistricting.
Thank you, through the chair.
Sure.
Thank you. Again, my information is based on calls that I get from my constituency and frankly, from constituents around the city. And at the end of the day, when they're saying, well, you know, my child's in a class and there's 10 people, but so-and-so is over in this other school and there's, 25 people. So if I could get a copy of that phased, it's probably it's on your website, probably?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we actually have a website on our website dedicated to redistricting. And
Oh,
so-
it's one of those, a website within a website. Am I going to need Samantha Stone to help me? Because she is an expert at all of that.
No, but all the information is publicly available, but I'm happy to.
Publicly available and easily found?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good luck. I know the MSBA is going to vote in our favor.
Council Viola?
Thank you. I just wanted to circle back on the debt services. Joe brought up a good point. I know the discussion tonight's not on funding, but we need to be mindful for our elderly residents and those that are on fixed incomes as well, with any big expenses that we do take in the future. So I do look forward to hearing from our city auditor as to what's falling off for debt and what this would affect. So, thank you.
From the chair, Donna, regarding the feasibility study, does that address things like Councilor Dillon brought up about, if we wanted to include the ECP program in the new Alta Vista, will that also touch on, or can it, the potential of putting that ECP program, or at least addressing the reasons why specifically it wasn't? I know your initial report, I think, has detail in there. And feel free, if you wanted to, I don't want to put you on the spot, explain why maybe it wasn't selected, like maybe the Malcolm White wasn't selected as a part, as a spot for the ECP. But if we wanted the feasibility study, does it actually include, and does the MSBA request, why do you need the ECP program in the new school, and why isn't it being considered somewhere else, like within the city?
So as part of the process, if you just include the ECP within your statement of interests, MSBA will work with you to determine where there is capacity or space available within the district or not, and say, okay, well, you have X amount of students, especially with your special education programs and the needs there. Those take certain classrooms offline in various schools. And then ultimately, here's the space that's available. And ultimately, as long as MSBA agrees with you, it will ultimately be the city's decision on what the preferred solution should be. It could be a renovation, which we know would not be the solution, an addition renovation, which we've kind of walked through that process, or a new school with the ECP, provided that MSBA is in agreement that there is not sufficient capacity at the other elementary schools to support that program. So they'll help you navigate that whole process.
So they will somewhat indirectly kind of address the potential if they felt as though the ECP would have been better suited at another location within the city, whether that's taking a middle school, an elementary school itself, or doing an addition off one of our, that will be addressed, or that could be addressed as part of the process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And whether that occurs during the eligibility period, let me find my eligibility period. Whether that occurs during the eligibility period, when MSBA determines with you what your enrollment capacity is, what your enrollment should be. That's going to be taking all of the building permits and, anticipated builds that are going to occur in the city. So you're going to work with MSBA to make sure that they have all of the information that they need during that time. And you can show them, all of the other programs that are required to support all of the elementary schools. So it could occur during the eligibility period, or you could agree to roll that into the feasibility study phase.
Okay.
So you should have opportunities to at least consider it.
Perfect. And I want to just thank and reiterate Councilor Demers' mention and request to Council Viola to have the city auditor bring up and discuss the debt service, because I think everybody in general supports the new North Woburn School, but I think everyone is also mindful about the implications on the residents of the city as a whole. So it is 100% beneficial and be a good educational tool for everybody to see over the next 4, 6, 7, 8 years what is falling off our books from older capital projects that we can then potentially use to offset the tax burden that is going to potentially impact our residents. Or because everybody's worried. Council Demers mentioned it about people on social media. Everyone's worried about the big tax bill that comes along with building this school. If we can educate them, and we know ourselves that, some of that gets offset from capital projects that are expiring off the books, it will be a big help for us, but also good knowledge for the general public as well. So thank you very much. Councilor DeBamero?
Don, I just have one question. If, and correct me if I'm wrong, remembering back when we did the school feasibility studies, there was talk about building a separate ECP building all on its own. Isn't it more cost effective to tack on an ECP to a building construction, as in the Alta Vista Linscott, proposed combined elementary school? Wouldn't it be more cost effective to combine both of those projects, all three of those projects, all in one, as opposed to doing an Alta Vista Linscott, sending it through? And I appreciate everyone's concerns, and I believe me, I completely understand the financial costs of this and what the implications could be, to the taxpayer. But I'm also wrestling with, what's the best way to go about getting what's, needed through, what we're hearing from the school committee as well as school administrators. I'm just trying to figure out what's the best approach. Is it building a separate unit altogether, or combining all three entities, the Alta Vista, the Linscott, with an ECP or without, and just have something separate?
You would have economies of scale on your side if you incorporated it into another building project, right? You'll not need some of the redundant services and everything else. You'll have a principal, right? You'll have a mechanical system already in place. You'll have, right? So you'll have lots of the services and building needs already built into the school. It might be a little bit bigger because now you're adding as opposed to a standalone, right? So typically you'll see an economies of scale there.
And I'm assuming, too, we would actually use or try to find land that we currently own, as opposed to going out and trying to find a parcel and purchasing it, and then doing all the, excavate or demolition and excavation work, so on and so forth. Whereas you have a parcel of land up in North Woburn that's pretty much shovel ready. So, I just want us all to keep that into consideration as well when this is all moves further down the road. Thank you.
If I could also, if we attach it also, the MSBA will pay for about half. Whereas if we were to do something separate, it would be funded separately.
It's funded separately.
Yeah.
Or on the total
That's what I mean.
total burden onto the taxpayer themselves.
Right.
And that's why I caution any talk about having something separate, because down the road, the MSBA may not be favorable to that, and then the full burden falls upon the taxpayer of whatever, the build-out cost would be on an entity on its own.
And if we're
I
looking at
appreciate
school year 33, 34 to put this school online, how much longer do you need to wait for an ECP refurb? it's going to be another
I mean,
however
I
many
can't even
percent.
fathom 2040, so let's just, let's stay in 2026.
Well, how much more expensive is it going to be then?
That's
Is my point. So.
Council Mercer Bruin?
Thank you. I just wanted to comment quickly on the tax, the tax increase. We managed to build a few schools here in Woburn and didn't increase our taxes for quite some time, right? So the way you do that is you make choices. So we have choices to make. We have a new school that needs to be built. There could be many other things that we and some other people would like done that just aren't going to get done. But it's up to us to hold that line. So I just want to remind everybody right here, it is up to us. The mayor can send down the budget. We cannot make it higher, but we have the ability to say, no, I don't think that's going to happen. I know I heard Mayor Concanon say the night of the inauguration how mindful he is of the cost increases that have happened in our city. So make no mistake about it, we will have to hold the line on other things that need to get done in this city in order to do this. So right now, that's why I think, President Toro, you pointed out to everybody, we're doing nothing here except for saying, look, let's see how much. So, thank you.
Perfect. Council Viola? Oh, I thought you, no. Anybody else? So,
Oh, go ahead.
so I did, in our city council meeting, mention that with such an important topic, that I did want to have public participation as much as possible. So I would entertain a motion to,
So moved. I'll make a
Second.
motion to
Second.
open it up to
Second.
the public.
Thank
Let's
you.
suspend the rules to allow members of the public to
is
speak.
that what you were going to say?
Yeah, that's what I was
Sorry.
gonna say.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there anybody here that would like to speak in regards to this topic? Please step forward.
Hi, guys. Rachel Kuberry. I live at 6 Blake Street. I just wanted to share my support of the project, so I hope that this first step moves forward. And thank you to everyone who's got us here tonight. I wanted to make a quick comment about the redistricting comment, in that, yes, as they explained, we have redistricted, and a big reason that was done at this time was to set up our SOI to be more favorable so that that legwork was done, and they had a plan for where kids should be. So that was really good for planning on the part of the administration and the school committee. A comment as we hopefully move forward with this is that it might be a big thing for the constituents to consider this financial part, and I think it would be really helpful for the public to be able to see the buildings. I know we have the feasibility study that's 2.5 years old at this point and has pictures nestled in 1,000 pages, but I think it'd be really impactful for people to be able to either see some of these buildings with their own eyes and go through them, or have like videos of some of the things. I don't think, if I understand, it's really hard to open up public buildings for lots of people potentially. So that's something that I hope we would be able to see as we move forward and get closer to that funding part. And then my last comment really is about a comment you just made about the choices that we have to make. The choice was already made by the school committee to put this project forward to the MSBA. However, there was a lot of conversation about the needs at our middle schools. And so when we look at the potential of this project going forward and opening in 7 or 8 years, I really hope that before that we can be talking about what our middle school needs, so that we perhaps, and it's not just the middle schools, but as we tend to all of our physical buildings, they're more likely to be able to stay alive with renovation and repair and not need to be a full knockdown rebuild. And so our middle schools really need attention. I know that's challenging to talk about in the constellation of these numbers here, but we have to talk about it before we hit a new North Woburn school opening. So thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Joe.
Anybody else here that would like to speak on this matter? Mayor Concanon.
Evening, Mr. President. Mike Concanon, Rose Farm Lane. At this point, I want to say that I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this thus far. A lot of people have been working a lot of hours to develop the information, to bring it to you and to the public so that we can make an informed decision on next steps. I appreciate the table setting done by the president and by the school committee and their presenters This is literally step one of probably 15 steps. No commitment is being made at this time other than an acknowledgement that we should try to get into the game at the MSBA and see what they have to say. It could be that what comes out the other end is something that we can't stomach. I don't know that yet, but I think it's definitely worth putting our projects forward, trying to get the feedback from the MSBA, working with them on all the different facets, capacity, enrollment, condition of facilities, et cetera. The problems in the buildings aren't going to get any better. We know that. And we've got a long process ahead of us. And I guess it's important that we take the first step. I would say that if we're successful in advancing along through this path that's been laid out for you, at some point there's going to be, if we're successful, there's going to be some really tough decisions on the amount of money this community is prepared to spend on a new North Woburn school and/or combined ECP. Last time we did a project of this significance, the Malcolm White Woburn High project, we asked the voters to weigh in on how they felt about that. I think that's something we should think about. I don't think it's anything we need to nail down right now. We're so early in the process. But I think it should be in the back of our minds for when the time is right to help us make the best decision in the best interest of the city. And a lot of times it's worth asking the people what they think. So I encourage the council to approve this first step, submit the SOI, and get the conversation started. And I think we'll all do our best to try to keep the public informed on where we are at each step along the way. And then ultimately, if successful and we're asked to spend some money, perhaps we ask the public to weigh in on that as well. So I thank you for your time, and I do respectfully request that you support this.
Thank you, Mayor Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anybody else like to speak on this matter? Please step forward. Good evening, Bernice.
Bernice Friedman, resident of 56 Leonard Street. I'm here to speak in favor of this project. Even though we live on the southern border of the city, I believe it is right and it's fair for the students in North Woburn to have a new school, a safe school for them to grow into. I also want to add some context to the conversation about redistricting. As the redistricting representative for the Shamrock School, we were called to have meetings and try to reshape the school zones. And the plan that was approved relies on an end map that links to the North Woburn project. So for example, at the Shamrock, we have 4 classrooms that are being used for pre-K students. So if we have the new ECP facility in North Woburn, that would free up some space at the Shamrock School so that we could take on some of the students that are currently in used to be the CLAP district. So we could take on those students to the Shamrock so they don't have to drive past the Shamrock to go to
another
Goodyear.
school, right?
Yeah. So just wanted to speak in favor of this project. Hope you pass it. Thank you.
Thank you
Bernice.
so much.
Thank you.
Anybody else here that would like to speak on this matter?
Make a motion to return the regular order.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Make a motion that both orders authorizing the superintendent of school to submit the statement of interest for both the Alta Vista Elementary School and the Linscott Rumford Elementary Schools be sent out to
Second.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.